A tired single father stepped into a luxury hotel just after 11:30 p.m., carrying his sleeping 8-year-old daughter on his shoulder. Her tiny hand clutched an old teddy bear while he quietly asked the receptionist for a room. The clerk glanced at his faded jacket, dusty sneakers, and worn backpack before smirking. "Sir, guests like you usually can't afford this place." Less than 2 minutes later, a wealthy-looking couple walked in without a reservation. They were welcomed with smiles and handed a premium suite immediately. When the father calmly asked to speak with the manager, the entire lobby turned to watch as security was called. No one realized the exhausted man being insulted in front of his daughter wasn't an ordinary traveler. He was secretly the founder of the entire hotel chain, visiting without informing anyone to test how guests were really treated. Before sunrise, careers would end, lives would change, and one little girl's innocent question would leave an entire lobby speechless. 3 months earlier, after returning from an overseas business trip, Daniel Carter chose to stop at his flagship hotel instead of driving another hour home. He never announced his visits because he believed employees revealed their true character only when they thought the owner wasn't watching. Daniel carefully laid his daughter, Lily, across one arm and walked toward the polished front desk. The marble floor gleamed under warm lights, and soft piano music filled the quiet lobby. Everything looked exactly as he had designed it years ago. What he didn't expect was the cold look from the receptionist. "My name is Ethan," the clerk said flatly. "How can I help you?" "Just one standard room for tonight," Daniel replied with a tired smile. Ethan barely looked at the computer before shaking his head. "I'm sorry, we're completely booked." Daniel nodded politely but noticed several room keys hanging behind the counter that were normally prepared only when rooms were available. He said nothing. Moments later, the revolving door opened. A fashionable couple entered laughing, carrying expensive luggage. Ethan's attitude changed instantly. His smile widened, his voice became friendly, and within minutes he handed them 2 key cards for a deluxe room. Daniel watched the entire exchange without interrupting. He gently adjusted Lily on his shoulder as she whispered sleepily, "Daddy, are we staying here tonight?" He kissed her forehead. "I hope so, sweetheart." Then he looked back at Ethan and calmly said, "I'd like to speak with the manager, please." The smile on Ethan's face disappeared. Within a minute, the night manager arrived. His name tag read Stephen Brooks, and he carried himself with the confidence of someone who believed his staff could never be wrong. "I've been told there's a problem," Stephen said. Daniel remained calm. "Your receptionist told me there aren't any rooms available. Yet I just watched him check in another walk-in couple." Stephen didn't even look at Ethan. "My employee used his professional judgment. We reserve the right to refuse service." Daniel paused for a moment. He wasn't angry. He was disappointed. "So appearance is now part of your hotel's policy?" he asked quietly. Stephen folded his arms. "Sir, if you're unhappy, I'd suggest trying another hotel." Several guests nearby began paying attention. Lily slowly opened her eyes and looked around the lobby. "Daddy, why won't they let us stay?" she asked innocently. Daniel gently smiled. "It's okay, sweetheart." But Lily looked at the manager and asked, "If hotels are supposed to make tired people feel safe, why are you sending us away?" The lobby fell silent. Stephen ignored her question and signaled 2 security guards to come forward. Daniel took a slow breath. He had seen enough. Without arguing, he reached into his pocket, unlocked his phone, and made one short call. "Please come to the Grand Crown Hotel," he said calmly. "It's time everyone learned what's really happening here." The call lasted less than 30 seconds. Daniel slipped the phone back into his pocket and stood quietly beside Lily. The two security guards stopped a few feet away, waiting for the manager's signal. "Sir, this is your final warning," Stephen said. "Leave the property immediately," Daniel simply replied. "We'll wait." The tension in the lobby grew heavier. A few guests quietly pulled out their phones, sensing something unusual was about to happen. Even one of the guards looked uncomfortable after seeing the frightened little girl holding her teddy bear. Just then, the elevator doors opened. Out stepped a sharply dressed man followed by two senior executives. The moment he saw Daniel, he hurried across the lobby without saying a word to anyone else. Stopping in front of him, he lowered his head respectfully. "Mr. Carter, I sincerely apologize for what happened tonight." The entire lobby froze. Stephen frowned. "Mr. Reynolds, you know this man?" The executive turned slowly toward the staff. "Know him?" he said firmly. "This is Daniel Carter, the founder and sole owner of the Carter Grand Hotels. Every person working in this building is here because of the company he built." The color drained from Ethan's face. Stephen stood speechless as the truth finally hit him. The man they had judged by his clothes owned the hotel they had just tried to throw him out of. For several long seconds, no one spoke. Daniel looked around the lobby, not with pride, but with disappointment. "The fact that you didn't know who I was isn't the problem," he said calmly. "The problem is how you treated someone you believed had no importance." Stephen quickly stepped forward. "Mr. Carter, there must be a misunderstanding. We were only following procedure." Daniel shook his head. "No. Your procedure changed the moment a well-dressed couple walked through that door. They were welcomed. My daughter and I were rejected before you even gave us a chance." He looked down at Lily, who was quietly holding his hand. "My late father worked as a hotel security guard for over 20 years, Daniel continued. "He always told me that a hotel's true character is revealed by how it treats the guest who seems to have the least." The lobby remained silent. Daniel turned toward the executives. "Effective immediately, Stephen is dismissed from his position." Stephen lowered his head, unable to say a word. Daniel then faced Ethan. "You made a serious mistake tonight, but mistakes can become lessons. You'll remain employed only if you complete a guest respect and leadership training program. If you refuse, tonight will be your last shift." Ethan nodded with tears in his eyes. Daniel's final words echoed through the lobby. "Respect should never depend on appearance, wealth, or status. It should be the first thing every guest receives the moment they walk through our doors." The next morning, Daniel called an emergency meeting with every department head. News of what had happened the previous night had already spread throughout the hotel. Standing before the staff, he spoke with quiet confidence. "I didn't come here to embarrass anyone," he began. "I came to discover whether our values still existed when no one believed the owner was watching." He invited everyone to look toward the lobby entrance. "Every person who walks through those doors is someone's parent, child, or loved one. They may be celebrating the happiest day of their lives, or carrying the heaviest burden they've ever faced. We never know their story, and we don't need to. Respect isn't something guests earn, it's something we give." The room remained completely silent. Daniel then announced several changes. Every employee, from reception to management, would complete new hospitality and empathy training. Anonymous inspections would become routine, and guest treatment, not appearance or sales, would become the company's highest performance standard. As the meeting ended, many employees stood and applauded. Not because they had to, but because they finally understood the kind of company Daniel had always dreamed of building. Standing beside him, Lily smiled proudly and whispered, "Daddy, now everyone knows how people should be treated." Daniel smiled back. "They always knew, sweetheart," he replied softly. "Today they simply chose to live by it." 3 months later, Daniel returned to the same hotel without informing anyone. This time he wore an expensive suit, but that wasn't the real test. Just behind him walked an elderly couple carrying old travel bags. They looked exhausted after a long journey. Before they even reached the reception desk, a smiling supervisor stepped forward. "Welcome to the Grand Crown Hotel," she said warmly. "Please let me help you with your luggage." Daniel watched quietly from across the lobby. The couple were offered cold water, comfortable seats, and a room within minutes. No one judged their clothes. No one questioned whether they belonged. Lily tugged gently on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, this is different now." Daniel smiled. "Yes," he replied, "because real luxury isn't found in marble floors or crystal chandeliers. It's found in the way people make strangers feel welcome." As they walked toward the elevator, the supervisor recognized Daniel and gave him a grateful smile. He simply nodded and looked around the lobby one last time. For the first time in a long while, the hotel truly reflected the values it had been built upon. Treat people with kindness before you know their story. Respect costs nothing, but it can change someone's life forever. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more inspiring stories every week.